Oh, there are so many yummy vegetarian options out there. You could try like lentil soup, veggie burgers, tofu stir fry. The possibilities are endless. So, if you've ever tried to buy or sell something internationally, you've probably stumbled across these weird three-letter acronyms. They're called Incoterms, and they can seem super confusing. But stick with me, because in this explainer, we're going to break them down and make them incredibly simple. So, first off, why do we even need these rules? Well, it's because shipping something across the world is full of potential problems. When your stuff is traveling thousands of miles, a lot can go wrong. And that creates a huge dilemma. I want you to imagine this for a second. You get a call, that huge shipment of your products, well, it's now at the bottom of the ocean. So who's on the hook for that massive financial loss? Is it you, the buyer, or is it the seller? Without a crystal clear agreement, a question like that can lead to some really nasty disputes. And that is the exact problem Incoterms were designed to solve. Here's the game plan for this explainer. We'll start with that big dilemma. Then we're going to decode the absolute basics of Incoterms. After that, we'll actually follow a piece of cargo on its journey around the world to understand each key term. And we'll finish up with a simple side-by-side comparison and some real-world advice on picking the right term for you. All right, let's get into it. Now, you might hear that there are 11 official Incoterms, which, I know, sounds like a lot to remember. But here's the good news. For most situations, you really only need to get a handle on about 6 of them. And the even better news, they all come down to answering 2 very simple questions. That's it. Seriously, every single one of those acronyms, EXW, FOB, CIF, it's all just a shorthand way of answering these 2 things. Number 1, who's paying for the shipping? And number 2, at what exact point does the risk of something bad happening, like damage or loss, transfer from the seller over to the buyer? If you can just keep these 2 questions in your head, everything else is going to fall right into place. Okay, now for the fun part. The absolute best way to understand these terms is to actually visualize a product's journey, all the way from the factory floor to the buyer's front door. So let's start at the very, very beginning of that trip. Our first stop is EXW, which stands for Ex Works. Just think of this as the you come and get it option. The seller's only job is to have the goods ready at their factory or their warehouse. Once that's done, they can wash their hands of it. Everything else, loading the truck, handling customs, the actual shipping, insurance, all of it, that's now the buyer's problem and the buyer's cost. This is the absolute least amount of work the seller can do. This really sums up the buyer's side of an EXW deal. They're basically saying, don't worry, we'll take it from here. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would a buyer want to take on all that work? Well, it comes down to one word: control. If you're a buyer with a great logistics team or a freight forwarder you really trust, you might choose EXW so you can manage the entire process yourself. You could even get better shipping rates. It gives you total control. But it also means you're taking on all the risk right from the start. Okay, let's get our cargo moving from the factory down to the port. Our next term is FOB, or free on board. With this one, the seller has to do a bit more work. They are responsible for all the costs and all the risk to get the goods not just to the port, but physically loaded onto the ship. The second that cargo is safely on board, poof, the risk and the cost responsibility flip over to the buyer. This quote from the seller highlights their bigger role here. Under FOB, they're not just making a product, they're handling all the logistics on their home turf. We're talking about the trucking, clearing the goods for export, and paying all those port fees to get it loaded. FOB is one of the most popular terms in the world because it creates a really clear handover point, the rail of the ship. It's simple. Before that point, it's the seller's problem. After that point, it's the buyer's. And now we're out on the high seas. With CFR, or cost and freight, the seller takes on another big expense. They pay for the main ocean journey all the way to the destination port. But, and this is so important, even though the seller is paying for the ride, the risk of something going wrong at sea belongs to the buyer. That risk transferred way back at the origin port, just like it did with FOB. And this dialogue right here, this is the nightmare scenario for a buyer using CFR. The seller paid for the shipping, which is great, but when a fire breaks out and the container goes overboard, it's the buyer who loses all their money if there was no insurance. It is a critical and potentially very expensive detail to understand. So, how do you protect yourself from that CFR nightmare? Simple. You use CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. It's almost exactly the same as CFR. The seller pays for the ocean trip and the risk transfers to the buyer when the goods are on board, but it has one crucial addition. Under CIF, the seller is required to buy at least a minimum level of insurance to cover the buyer's risk during the journey. See, this conversation just shows the peace of mind that CIF brings to the table. It's CFR with a built-in safety net. So who's this for? It's perfect for buyers who don't have their own big insurance policy, or for smaller companies who just want a simple, all-in-one price from the seller that includes that protection for the main voyage. Okay, our cargo has successfully crossed the ocean. We're in the home stretch now. With DDU, or Delivered Duty Unpaid, the seller's job goes almost all the way to the end. They handle and pay for everything to get the goods right to the buyer's final destination, like their warehouse. They stop short of one last important step. This is what people often call door-to-door shipping, but with a big asterisk. The seller gets it to your door, but it's on you, the buyer, to handle the final customs clearance in your country. That means you're the one paying any import duties or taxes that are due. The seller gets it to the door, you get it through customs. And at last, we've arrived at our final stop, DDP, or Delivered Duty Paid. This is the complete opposite of EXW. With DDP, the seller does absolutely everything. They manage the entire journey from start to finish, they handle the customs clearance at the destination, and they pay all the import duties and taxes. This is the most work a seller can possibly do. From the buyer's perspective, this is the dream. It's the most convenient, hassle-free option you could imagine. Now, of course, the seller isn't literally giving the stuff away for free. All those shipping costs and taxes are just baked into the final price of the product. But logistically, all the buyer has to do is sit back and wait for their stuff to arrive. Okay, we've followed that cargo on its entire journey, looking at each term one by one. Now let's zoom out and put everything on one slide so we can see how they all stack up against each other. This is where it's all gonna click. This chart is your new best friend. Seriously, take a look. As you go down the list from EXW at the top to DDP at the bottom, you see a really clear pattern, right? The seller's responsibility and costs just keep going up, and the buyer's keep going down. And now look really closely at CFR and CIF. See how the risk transfer point is identical. It happens when the goods are on the vessel. The only difference is that one little word in the seller's column, insurance. But as we saw, that one word can make all the difference. This table is your ultimate cheat sheet. So after all that, we get to the million-dollar question. How do you actually pick the right term for your business? Well, the truth is, it depends. It depends on your experience, your connections, and really how much control you want to have over the whole process. So let's get practical. If you're importing for the first time, FOB, CFR, or CIF are usually fantastic places to start. Why? Because they make the seller deal with all the headaches in their own country, the customs, the port, all the stuff that's probably a big mystery to you. Now, if you're an experienced exporter, using CFR or CIF can give you a lot of leverage since you can use your relationships with shipping companies. But at the end of the day, there's no single best term. It's all about finding the right balance of cost, control, and risk for you. And that's what I want to leave you with. Now that you understand this journey of risk and cost, think about your own business. Are you a buyer who craves total control? Or do you just want total convenience? Are you a seller trying to offer a white glove full-service experience? The answer to which term gives you the ultimate advantage? Well, that's not a universal answer. It's your answer.